Hello everyone. If you're on YouTube, welcome. If you're on Twitch, welcome. This is STRAT Chat. I do it every Friday at 3:30, and we basically talk about many different things. Different ones are, each one of course is set up with a different theme. We talk about a certain thing. I'll answer any questions that you ask. If you ask on YouTube, I will get back to it later, but it will be pretty timely. Um, Stream live. I have chat up, so if you have any questions, just throw it in there. It doesn't have to be on topic. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I'll answer any questions. And today we are actually doing a viewer suggested strat chat on the quad DPS scene in Korea. Some things to actually cover before we get into any of this is that it is worth noting that the team that played, I can't remember their name, but the team that played it when they were losing to GC Busan. They 3-0 last map. Basically, Busan didn't even need to win. That was kind of how bad of a position they are in. But this map specifically has a very interesting geometry that allows them to, of course, pull off this strategy. And it mainly isn't. And I do want to mention that this has been like VOD reviewed. Many different people have looked on it. I haven't, so I have different perspectives on it. But yeah, first of all, I do want to mention that this is, I'm saying that a word a lot. I need to mix that up. But basically, this is a comp that I've played for a while. I've thrown it out a couple of times. We used to call it pork roast. The original idea was to have a roadhog basically sit on the point, contest it, and then just heal himself and knock people off, stuff like that. They use an Orisa, which I think is better. We used to play the Roadhog because we had a guy who could only play Roadhog, or he played Roadhog better than anyone else, so we were like, yeah, you stay on Roadhog, and then we just kind of created it off of that. Other things about it is that, movement stuff, other things about it is that what we did run was we ran a dive version of quad DPS when we actually ran it. And that's a garage door. Haha. But yeah, we would run a quad DPS version. So basically what we would do is we would, oh my gosh, I need to remember like what we actually used to play way back when. So the comp we used to run was, we had a Tracer, a Sombra, a Pharah. There was one more. I think we had a Genji.
The war goes
Yeah.
on.
So we had a Tracer, Sombra, Pharah, Genji, and the main idea was that the Sombra's health pack, she would just basically hack a ton of health packs, and all the DPS can kind of go and scavenge for them. We actually have Hammond on the list of things to play instead. But yeah, so basically we would run that as like a quad DPS, and we would run a Mercy, very similar to how, I believe it's Thunderwave. Let me double check. Let me actually double check that real quick before. What was the team name? The answer, I don't know. Stormquake. Huh. Sorry. When you're into Transformers and you see a lot of that stuff, you don't really get that idea. But yeah, so that was what we would do, and we would actually run it as a dive. Pretty effective, actually. I need to get better at that. I don't practice that ever because I don't play soldiers, so I should actually practice that to get better at the rocket jumps. But yeah, the main reason why this comp works specifically is that they knew they were going to play goats. Whoop-de-doo. They're playing goats. I don't really care. But in order for goats to have a rotation, so in Overwatch, every comp has a rotation. And a lot of people with dive consider that it's like, oh, no. So people forget a lot of the times that there's a rotation before the combat. There is getting into position. You don't just go, okay, we are on the cart, dive in 3, 2. That's It's not a good idea to go about. What you want to be doing is you want to be setting up the team into a position that gives you a better chance of winning. So, for example, if you're playing goats and the entire team is on the high ground, like let's say if everything was going regular, we were playing goats v goats, and pretty much what would happen is we would have goats comp right here, woohoo. They would pull the cart around that side, and then the goats comp would basically rotate all the way around, maybe underneath, whatever, but they would rotate so that they were on the high ground with the other team. Either that or knock them off the high ground, whatever. Different ways to do it, but what you want to do is you want to rotate so that your team has a better advantage, if not the same advantage, because you don't want to engage on a lower advantage. A lot of comps with like dive, of course, dive just jumps, really quick rotations, all that kind of good stuff. What this team actually did was they held up here, and here has two different rotation zones that you can take. Basically, in order to rotate, you need to get on this high ground either back through here or up this tunnel. And what a lot of teams initially think is, oh, we'll just go up the tunnel. If you notice, this tunnel is a long corridor. And if anyone remembers what else is a long corridor, this comp does work on Hanamura. Second point is you have a long corridor that the team has to push through. And let's say you play a Ryan and they hold their shield up and run forward. Basically, you just shred damage into this. Boop, ba-doop, boop, boop. And you get kills. Basically, they were running a Widowmaker, a Hanzo, a Pharah, and a Soldier. And so basically, there's many different factors that actually helps out this team in advance. A lot of people are mentioning how the team is spread out. They're very mobile. Soldier gets dove. He runs away. They start running towards Soldier. He runs away. All that stuff. People forget that Soldier, in the past, way back in, God, it's been forever. It's before the League, and it was right after Ana came out. It was a common comp that was run by Team Envious was they would run a solo Ana for heal, and they would put Harry Hook as Soldier because he was the best soldier in the world, probably still the best soldier in the world. Granted, he hasn't shown it in Overwatch League in a while, mainly because Soldier hasn't been meta. But yeah, they would have Harry Hook on Soldier, and they would just use him for peel. They would, boom, health pack on the Ana, shoot, peel, all that stuff, and then you got tack visor. Really good stuff. And so people actually forget that this Soldier is actually filling the slot of the off tank or second support, either one. Soldier's actually kind of a mix of both. He's commonly used for Zen players to get out to stall. So the healing output of a Soldier in a stall comp is about the same as a Zen. And you get to the fight a lot easier, and you can deal the same amount of damage, if not more, as a Soldier. So, Soldier mechanics aside, you basically, boom, shoot in, burn down their shield, and as they approach you, you just rotate back here, and you have another long corridor if they want to chase you. Now, the smart move for the other team would be to actually jump down and head up this side, but you can constantly kite the enemy, and especially in a quad DPS comp that's super mobile, you just kite, and you can kite in different directions, and they have to pick and go with that, and that's where things get a little hairy. You are able to potentially get an entire Goats comp through this and kill the enemy team. This can happen. So if you try to immediately go, oh, we'll just run quad DPS and it will just magically work. Truth of the matter, all that stuff is that if you just assume that, it won't work. And the main reason is if you're standing up here like they did in their positioning, they had perfect angle here, they had angles here to get picks, all that stuff. If they start, you need to keep your cooldown management really solid. Because, for example, if they start coming up this corridor, you want Stormbow, you want Rocket, all that stuff in order to get them in this corridor. Because remember, they still have a shield, they have tankiness up the wazoo, possibly a Moira, Ana, whatever. It's going to be an absolute insane ride for them unless you've used all of your cooldown abilities and all you have is just primary fire to stop them. That is when they have a window to come through. And then you also have to remember that once they're coming through, do not rotate over here, because if you rotate over here, then the D.Va will just knock you off. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to try to run straight into you with a Reinhardt. The D.Va's just going to knock you off, and they're going to focus on whoever went down this corridor. In other words, you want to go down this corridor with your team, or you're just going to die. So, all of that coming into play, that's why GC Puzan switched off, because Widowmaker would get a pick, Hanzo could get a pick, basically a lot of options. You had a Far Mercy running because they were running a Mercy, and so they had all of that going for them, and it was just about protecting this corridor and baiting them into the combat. Same thing could have technically been down here, but it's still a bait either way, and it's hard to contest this high ground. Now, some ways that they could have remedied that is if they were able to sneak underneath here, slip underneath here, and rotate around, but it's very difficult to rotate this way because you also have a long corridor this way. But if you did some pincer maneuver, that being said, running goats in this situation wouldn't be prime needed. You also have, of course, the Orisa on point, who's just going to stall till she can't stall no more, while everyone else just shells damage on them. It's that whole idea of you have one guy that's going to be the fall guy, and you're going to hear constantly whoever is that tank player on the point is going to feel like they're not doing anything. It happens every single time. I've had a player completely quit because they felt like they were doing absolute shit. And it was because they're just a punching bag in this comp. And it's sad to say, but it's true. You might get complaints from whoever's is a person on the point if you're running it in a team environment. So maybe mix it up a bit for them. I like Hammond on this one because the idea with Orisa is you stay on this for as long as you can and then you die. I don't really like that. I kind of like the idea of Hammond stays on this for as long as he can and then he leaves. Gets healed, all that stuff. So in technically, the other way to run this is, of course, there's always my way, where you run a dive version. And also to note as well is that Sombra dive that we had set up was before the whole Sombra thing was a meta thing. Taking a swig. Hit the mic, I'm sorry. But yeah, you could actually run the dive version pretty nicely. It would work pretty nice. You just have Pharah chipping down on them and then just pushing in on them with Blade and other stuff. Like Genji can just kite around everything. The D.Va, you're overwhelming the D.Va in a lot of these situations because the D.Va can't deal with the high ground if there's so much to deal with, so the D.Va will try to come over. If she's trying to solo and you just boom kill her or whatever, I don't know. But in a quad DPS, it is actually really easy to kill the D.Va, and D.Va's really killable lately. I've noticed this, especially with McCree getting changed. McCree's a really good option too because he can just right click, all that stuff. Does a ton of damage, honestly. But yeah, there's all that. They end up taking this over by just playing dive, which means their entire team doesn't have to go through that corridor or that, and they just jump on these people. The best dive target, of course, as has been mentioned, is the Hanzo, because once the Hanzo leaps, he can't leap no more. Soldier is an okay dive target if he... a Soldier is a good dive target if he's already used his heal station. So, depending on your elo or whatever, you'll see they'll dive. Oh, Soldier heal, runs away. Then you just chase after him. It's kind of dumb. But usually higher level, you would get the Soldier that runs to here, puts his health pack down, and just starts spewing through here. But yeah, a lot of it is kiting the enemy. And lately I've noticed that a lot of the meta that's coming around to countering like goats and stuff like that is kiting them, slowing them down, or out damaging their ability to actually get through. So it leaves us to Bastion, all that stuff. So yeah, if you're going up against a quad DPS comp like that, you basically want to bait for a kill. Basically, Tracer's really good against a quad DPS comp, mainly just because, yeah, she has a lot of like one-shot ability. You die a lot. You could die a lot if they just constantly hit you with shots. But if you're up in their face, especially with like a Hanzo and a Widow, they have issues dealing with them unless they've like extensively practiced like taking you out, or they hit a lucky shot or whatever, if they're actually a god. But yeah, so going up against you would want to just like let's say Widow's right here, run a Tracer or run someone up this side and just kind of like poke at her, and she goes, oh no, I'm going to jump over here or whatever. I don't care. She hooks over here, let's say. She's like, oh, I'm going to hook over here, and then Winston just rolls around just on him. Or Widow's out of the line of sight of the front, and so you've moved her out of the way. So there's a lot of different ways around it. Not really the best of comps. I like the dive version a lot more because it's mainly around... There's good things about it. A, you're not really... The pork roast is... You're not really feeding a lot of ult charge, for one. 2, you're spending most of your time in a high damage, like skirmish, many different ways to like go, all that stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of different options, honestly. So let's look at other maps. Hanamura. Let's do the Winter Hanamura. Why not? So let's go to Hanamura. I'll show off what you do in Hanamura. So, like I said, this comp can be ran very similar in Hanamura, just because of this second point defense. You can actually, running Orisa would be pretty good. You just run an Orisa up here and you just have a shield and a ton of snipers. So you have the double snipers, and you of course have a Pharah, and a soldier, all that stuff. So basically they have to come up this corridor or they die, which is actually a shorter corridor than the one on... it's about the same. But yeah, corridor sucks. So yeah, not really fun to actually go up against. Same thing goes there. You have a long choke point. You have, of course, the ability to run this comp. You have Lunar Colony? No. Depends. You can run it on Lunar Colony to defend the left high ground, but it's not practical because it's a little awkward. Yeah, it's not really that practical, I'll be honest. You can run it, but it's not practical. Anubis? Nah. Volskaya, no. Blizzworld, no. Let me think. No. Eichenwald, no. I'm thinking like through my head of like what would it be useful for. King's Row, no. No. I'm saying no initially, and then I like think back of like, could it? No. Numbani? Technically, you can run it on Numbani if you know they're running goats. This is another thing as well, is do extensive scouting, know the team, try your best to know the team that you're going up against, and know if they're actually going to be running goats on it, because yeah, it can be great or it can be bad. A lot of different things that can occur. You can run a Junkrat in the comp, but I'd suggest keeping the soldier just because the soldier actually provides healing. The soldier, Hanzo, well, the Hanzo Widowmaker is just for one shot. Pharah, similar. But yeah, so playing back here, they come up here, you just kite around here, boom, boom, course, if they're playing dive, you're just screwed because they just come in here and just can leave whatever. They just stay at this edge and just... Because I think they can actually... Let me see. Yeah, you can just like stay here and just go back and forth, get healing from your Ana, whatever. Not really the best, but it's possible. Do the same up here. But of course, goats is useful here if you want to run it, but it's not the best. This comp usually is more for people who, well, teams who can only play goats. Busan, no. Ilios, no. Li Zhang, no. You can do it for, oh, the server one? Can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. Control Center. There we go. Nepal, probably not. Oasis, probably same situation. Dorado, no. Junker Town, no. Rialto, no. You can use it on second point if they really want to take up that high ground, but it's not really. It is like a defensive style comp. You can do it offensively, but you have to take control of those points and force them to come to you. Or you just basically try to deal as much damage as you can. Gibraltar. No. You can use it to... It's kind of weird. Basically in this comp, what you want to do is you want to... You want to take out... You want to take out the tank as they're coming into you. So let's see if I can...
We're all soldiers.
So like you'll have like a main tank coming towards you. You want to hit that main tank before anything else. I think also GC Busan tried to counter this comp with a Winston Goats, which is okay. I don't care. But they just kill the Winston because again, you don't have everyone that can come up with you. And that Winston a lot of the times as well was kind of messing up. I don't know why he was doing it, but he was just trying to go through it alone and was ending up here. I don't know why. Winston, the last thing you want to do is have a Winston inside here. You do not want this. You want the Winston up above if you can. But just like coming up here, it's bad news bears. But let me add... So let's see if he like mimics what to do. I'm going to open up questions. I think this is a fairly quick one. Huh. That was a weird hitboxing. Yeah, we have no questions so far. Tips to maybe countering goats off the top of my head. I know the Bastion one's been getting a lot of good praise. It's nice if you can create a long distance in which they can't get to the Bastion. Otherwise, it's a little interesting. Trying to think of common ways that people can actually misconstrue this comp or other comps like it. Targets to focus down would probably be like Moira if you can pick off the Moira or Ana or whatever their primary source of healing is nice, all that stuff. In a dive version, you basically you run like you would regularly run, but just without like a diva. or stuff like that. So
Should have kept your head down.
in certain situations, you don't really need a diva. Diva's nice. She can do a lot of cool things. She can stop some abilities from happening. She can eat them with defense matrix, all that kind of stuff, eating orbs. But there's some cases in which she's just getting countered so hard. So like if they're playing a Mei and you're just diving in and getting frozen all the time, don't play diva. She's great and all, but there's a time and a place for everything. It's not now. But yeah, running like a quad DPS is okay. Technically, in a comp, you don't really need that many healers if you're running this style, because a healer's trying to top you off and edge you in a fight, and that's mainly meant for tanks. And if you're running less tanks, you don't need as much healing. And I really like the Sombra version because it means that you have much more control over the health pack, and I think a lot of people really underestimate how much the health packs actually do. Let me see. Anything interesting? Yeah. Let's see if I think I just got a notification to see. Nope. Ah, kind of a bummer. Well, in that case, let me see. Don't think we have any questions necessarily. Any character questions anyone wants? Any of them? Bueller?
Only through conflict do we evolve.
With Brig being changed, I don't know if quad DPS is really going to be needed that much. I like it in certain situations, so like some teams will have problems. Like dive works a lot better in a quad DPS dive version, especially with teams that aren't really used to dive. So if you have problems getting target focusing, usually in those cases and scenarios, if you have like two people that are together, which will happen statistically a lot more often. But yeah, if you have that scenario, then people are more likely to be diving the same target, especially in like a scenario where there's targets that both characters like to take out. So, good example, Zen's on the enemy team. Oh hey, look, we have a Tracer and a Sombra and all that stuff. They all just dive on them at once, try to get coordinated up. If you dive from multiple angles as well, it's hard for them to actually defend against because they can only defend on one side. Diva can, of course, defense matrix, but there's ways around it. Not really sure about the whole Doomfist being crap, because I still think he's actually pretty good, especially since there's now a hole in the stunning Reinhardt thing that now is left by Brig. As well as he can't be defense matrixed, so his damage just goes through no matter what. A non-defense matrixable words. That's a difficult one. Those situations are actually a lot more difficult. Let's see. I want to figure out what this stabilization thing is with McCree. Yeah, recoil, cover, stabilization, all that stuff. I think that's actually better.
Gotcha.
Because now I'm not as high up. That works. Cool. Well, since we have no questions, which is kind of a bummer, but oh well. I'll go ahead and sign off. This was kind of a This is a shorter one because there's not really much to talk about with this quad DPS. But it's a comp. Comp that my friend Garrett, I do want to mention that it was made by my friend Garrett as an idea to just kind of distract. We've talked with teams, got them to use it in some situations. We've told them about the great and powerful. I've been kind of not really too big of a fan of it, especially when it was like running hog as it. I wasn't a big fan of that, but it works. Some people don't feel like it actually does that well, but it's really good for teams that have problems coordinating, to just kind of get them to mix in a little bit more, because it's useful without the coordination, because it's a lot of just people taking 1v1s in some situations, but it can be a bit better. So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you for watching. See you later. Bye-bye.